Hello, I'm Mauro Guillen. I'm a professor at the Wharton School, and today I'm chatting with Professor Sigal Barsade, my colleague at Wharton in the management department. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sigal.
It is my pleasure, and thank you for having me in the class.
So you're an expert on emotional intelligence and organizational culture. And today you told students many different kinds of things about your area of expertise. But in particular, what is emotional contagion? And why is it relevant in the context of this pandemic?
So my focus really of the class today was on emotional contagion, and the reason that it is so relevant is because, as in the words of Governor Cuomo, emotional contagion of, for example, fear and panic could be even more dangerous than the virus itself. And so what emotional contagion is, it's the phenomenon where we are catching emotions from one another. And it's almost like we catch them like a virus. And we do that because we behaviorally mimic each other. And then we actually feel those emotions physiologically. But what makes contagion so important, particularly in crisis, is one very important aspect of contagion is that the research shows that we generally don't realize it's happening. And so what that means, for example, in the time of COVID-19 is, we may feel really, really panic and anxious, but we're feeling it more than we need to because we're catching it from the news. We're catching it from social media. We're catching it from our neighbors and, the people we're social isolating with or the people, that we're talking to. And the thing is, it's not that we're not entitled to feel the emotions we're feeling and the negative ones. And in fact, it's very important to feel them. But with emotional contagion, what can happen is we can feel it more than we should. We'll be more upset, more anxious than we should. And the reason that's a problem in this crisis is not only just because we feel bad, which would be bad enough, but because we know from the research literature that emotional contagion then influences our decision making and performance and all sorts of other things. So if we unintentionally catch negative emotions, we are not going to be doing a good job for our organizations or in our life because our decision-making will be hampered.
Okay, you also refer to an idea that I think is really important for us to understand. In the context of social distancing, most of us are practicing that these days.
Yeah.
Does that necessarily result in loneliness?
It doesn't have to, but you have to be really careful about it. So, one of the things about crises is that as humans, we all kind of have a need for connection, and we have a particular need for connection when things are going badly. In this social distancing or physical distancing situation, we're not being allowed to do exactly what we would actually instinctively want to do. Now, the important thing to know, though, is that isolation does not necessarily translate to loneliness. But you need to be careful. And the thing about loneliness is very subjective. So loneliness is whether we think our social and emotional needs are met. Now, we have different levels of social and emotional needs, and so the different two people in the same situation might feel differentially lonely. But what I would say is that if you're socially isolated, for example, let's say you're socially isolated literally by yourself, you need to make sure that you are reaching out and that you are getting those social and emotional needs met so that you don't fall into loneliness. And you shouldn't assume you're going to be lonely, if you're not. They're two very different things. But you also want to make sure that you help other people not be lonely as well and be really attuned to that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, how about leaders of an organization or a team? Should they display their emotions during this difficult time? Is that a better approach to leading people during a time of crisis?
Absolutely. And actually, of course, as a scholar of emotional intelligence, I would say it's a better approach always. But particularly in a time of crisis, our people who are following you, they're getting guidance from you, not only from your words, but also from your emotions. And actually, often it'll even be more than from your words than for your emotions. But I think I want to be really careful about what that means. So what that means is you want to be authentic. And what I mean by that is you want to be emotionally transparent, show what you feel, and cognitively transparent. Say what you mean, but within what's appropriate to whatever context you're in. So yes, if you're completely panicking, coming out and saying, oh my God, I'm completely panicking, that's not a good idea. But being able to show your emotions within your context will help your people relate to you a lot better. And in times of crisis, it can really, really help them to calm down. And that doesn't mean, again, that you need to be Pollyannic about it. Angela Merkel did an incredible job with this, but she was actually one of the first people who was really saying it straight. Look, this is going to affect a lot of people. It's going to be hard. But then she also showed emotions, because emotions aren't just positive, negative. You can show hope. You can show compassion. I've done a lot of work on something called companionate love, which is showing actually affection, caring, compassion, and tenderness. And we find that it's very powerful. So you have a wide range of emotions that you can show, but your people are looking to you for that. And if you don't show it to them, you are missing out on a very powerful way to communicate with them and to help them and to influence them.
I see. So based on what you're saying, are emotions good for the economy then?
So that is a complicated question. What I would say is emotions are absolutely part of the economy. Whether they're good or bad for it, they are part of it. Now, there's a very famous line that drives me crazy, which is, keep your emotions out of this. Just be rational. That's how things will work best. And the reason it drives me crazy is because the research literature resoundingly shows, we've got about 25 years of lab experiments and about a decade of neuroscience, shows that having a mild positive mood, like not euphoria, just a mild, low-grade positive mood, leads to better decision making. And so much of what people talk about is, no, your emotions are bad for decision. Yeah, some emotions are bad for decision. Being panicked is bad for decision. Being anxious is bad for decision making. It leads you to have a really tunnel mindset. But a mild positive mood is actually better than neutral for good decision making. And so, again, you don't want people to be inauthentic. And a mild positive mood could also be calmness. A certain, it doesn't have to be kind of cheerful, high energy. And in fact, it even shouldn't be. And so what I would say is, if we could somehow get this message out to the average person as well as to our decision makers, then they would know they could actually best use their decision making, and we could turn the economy around a lot faster, because people wouldn't make the kind of decision errors that they make when they are anxious and panicked.
I see. Those are really important suggestions, I think, for all of us. And now finally, in your class, you use the examples of several leaders, and I'm going to name them. And the question is, why did you choose them? So you just mentioned Governor Cuomo and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. You also referred to Jacinda Ardern, who's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, to Anthony Fauci, whom everybody knows by now, who heads one of the centers within the NIH, and also Arne Sorensen, who is the CEO of Marriott Hotels. So why did you choose these examples of leaders?
So I chose those examples because they all showed certain commonalities. One commonality is they did show their emotions, and they showed them quite authentically. Arne Sorensen, the president and CEO of Marriott, showed real vulnerability and care for his employees as he was giving this very difficult message. Jacinda Ardern is known for her ability to really empathize and connect with her people in a way that both shows the emotion and is very calm and also very, very logical at the same time. I've already talked about Angela Merkel and how good she was at sort of delivering that news and still being authentic. And Anthony Fauci, I mean, he is just amazing at his ability to give really hard news, but to do it in a way that you don't leave completely devastated, but you actually leave hopeful. And that's the other thing that all these people shared in common, which is they were hopeful, that they left always at the end of the message, again, not in a rainbows and unicorn kind of way, but in a way that seemed like they had a plan and was very sensible, but also hopeful. And that is what leaders should be aspiring to.
Okay, so I'm feeling the positive emotional contagion, I must say. And I should emphasize, of course, that everything that you've shared with us today is based on very meticulous research that you have undertaken over the last couple of decades or so. So this was Professor Sigal Barsade from the Management Department at the Wharton School. Sigal, thank you so much for joining us.